Well, hello there, and welcome to day 125 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And after all these weeks of watching Marvel films, doing the recaps, finally I can reveal the truth. Hail Hydra. That's right, today I am talking about the genuinely incredible potential turning point in the MCU, that is Captain America Winter Soldier. This is to say this is possibly the best Marvel film is not close to being hyperbolic. Because, I mean, you can say what you will about Iron Man and the fact that it led everything that came after it, and it is such a strong standalone film. You can say, well, the Avengers changed our perceptions of superhero films going forward. You can even go ahead to things like saying, well, some people really think that Guardians of the Galaxy added something, a different perspective, or Black Panther really gave us something we'd never seen before, or even, Infinity War and Endgame are these Star Wars level climaxes to the universe at that time. And yet, Captain America Winter Soldier is such a solid standalone film that seems to do everything right. It seems to know how to be a perfect sequel to First Avenger. It seems to know how to be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to have the right texture and style and the right callbacks and foreshadowing to go for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and yet have such a distinct identity as a film in itself that theoretically I think you could watch Captain America, as long as you knew who Captain America was, broadly speaking, as a character. I think you could watch Winter Soldier as someone who'd never seen an MCU film and think this is a great espionage thriller with something else, that superhero style to it. I mean, I don't really want to talk through the plot of it because frankly, I've done this 2-3 times before where I've said my recommendation is to go and see this film as soon as possible. That from this point on, this is more a breakdown of the importance of the film, a discussion of where the characters are, where this fits, the Russo brothers, everything like that. But frankly, in terms of the story and the movie as a broad strokes review, it is go and see this film. This is an A-star film. Frankly, if you're watching an MCU recap retrospective, you've probably already seen Winter Soldier. I feel like Winter Soldier is one of those ones, like the Avengers, like Iron Man, like the first Cap, that, frankly, you will have seen. Almost everyone who is interested in a superhero will have seen Captain America Winter Soldier. Because it is as good as everyone says. I've mentioned before, with Iron Man 2, with Thor Dark World, that there was a real problem following up from these solid starts. And I was quite critical of Captain America the First Avenger. I do have my issues with it, but some people really love it, and it does have a really good World War II aesthetic to it. But where you had Iron Man, which is a genuinely great film, and Thor, which is much more solid than I remembered originally. It actually is an incredibly solid film. Their sequels were trying to do too much whilst trying to encapsulate the films that they followed, and they just... It was all too much for them. They couldn't just be films with an identity in their own right. Winter Soldier is better than Captain America First Avenger, frankly. Like I say, some people really love that first film, but Winter Soldier, it knows how to transition the character of Steve Rogers into a context where we can finally get the Captain America man out of time that we got in the Avengers film, but we really got to explore in this film. The setting, the fact that like I say, this can lean into the Marvel side of things when it needs to. We get the best version of Nick Fury in this. I mean, up to this point, we got very little smatterings of him. A cameo in Iron Man 1, a glorified cameo in Iron Man 2, where he has a bit of personality, but they're still sort of deciding what that is. A distinct Iron Man, the Avengers personality, and then this is the one where I feel like you get the Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury action scene that we got a little bit of in the Avengers, but this is the one. That car scene is one of the best action sequences in any action film. Not just superhero film, any action film. I mean, that's one thing that the Russos really achieve in terms of the cinematography. They really know how to explore different ways action scenes can be presented. We'd had, up to this point, and just in the action genre as a whole, open space, different, on bridges, on mountaintops, on buildings, those kind of action scenes. But one thing I have to really appreciate in this film is between the car scene with Nick Fury and the lift scene with Steve versus all of those SHIELD agents. It really shows the capacity of great cinematography and direction in a way that I'm sure there have been action films that have done that before, like close, intense proximity fight scenes, and yet I'd never seen that. And it looks so good. I mean, like I say, the car scene, at this point, Samuel L. Jackson is a man in his, I think, 60s he would have been in then. So they can't put him through too physically grueling an experience because, he could only push someone, even of Samuel L. Jackson's ability and fitness, so far. And so they give him a scene which, frankly, from the perspective of the actor, is incredibly close quarters. It can be done where it's just jumping from seat to seat, reactions, and all of the action, all of the actual physical stuff is happening outside of the car, which I think is a perfect blend of those two things. And again, it allows the super heroics, the comic book stuff to take the weight of things where you go, well, if this was a more traditional action scene, how would they get around this? And I think that's what makes it so strong. And then with the lift scene, again, I'm certain they've done something like that before, but again, that sense of one man versus a group of men in an incredibly tight space, having to essentially grapple his way through bodies, almost like it makes me think of like Game of Thrones when Jon Snow has to swim his way out of men. It's that level of like intensity where you think this takes incredibly tight cinematography, so it doesn't look confusing. You can still get that sense of choreography, of structure to it, so you know what's happening and what everyone in that sequence is doing. I mean, looking back to like Snowpiercer, which of course is the Chris Evans link, that similarly has that close proximity, that intense space combat that clearly he is quite adept at. And so I think those two scenes really do represent the skill of the Russo brothers in the way that they manage to shoot those scenes. And of course, there's only two examples of a number of incredible set pieces. I love the opening scene of Steve versus Batroc, the Leaper. I mean, recently we had, and I'm sure I'll refer to Falcon and Winter Soldier later on, but Batroc is a character who, for a very sort of small, not really important, C, D, Z list villain, I'm really glad that he got such a good play throughout the Captain America and Falcon and Winter Soldier films, because the scene between the hand-to-hand combat scene between him and Steve is just, it's great. It looks beautiful. The choreography looks practically kung fu levels of skill and shooting, where you just have, it doesn't matter that partway through the fight it starts to do the much more close cuts to be able to do something we're more familiar with, but there are moments where we have a few seconds of panning, unbroken choreography, and I will always appreciate that. That is something that is takes an adept hand. And again, that character, he's there purely for a fight, but I'm glad they brought him back for Falcon and Winter Soldier. And minor spoilers, they do him dirty towards the end. They really do, and I'm a little disappointed, but hey, I'm glad that they were able to bring him back at all. But yeah, so with Nick Fury, of course, he's really well and of course the Shield aspect of this is the prominent centre point. So of course you have to have Natasha Romanoff in it. It's interesting, really, how we're still awaiting the Black Widow film that is theoretically a month away. TBD. We'll see how things are going at the minute with cinemas and releases and what Disney Plus will do, but finally we're going to get this film one way or another. But it's interesting that you had Black Widow in Iron Man 2. Of course, then she's part of the ensemble of the Avengers. And then again, she is another supporting character in Cap 2 as well. The only one she never really got, of the originals, that she never really got to be a supporting character was the Thor films. But it's quite interesting that they really wanted to keep placing her as a strong support in those films. And I am looking forward to finally her getting her own film. It is well past time. So it'll be interesting to see, because we've never had Scarlett Johansson lead a Marvel film single-handedly. And of course she can do it. She's led many other films outside of the MCU. But it'll be interesting to see how that character plays when she is the central focus. And of course, the great twist of the film, it's not the Winter Soldier stuff, which if you know the character, you know who it is. And if you don't, practically all of the promotion materials and the fact that you know what he looks like, if you remember what he looks like from the first film, you know who the Winter Soldier is. That is, of course, Bucky. The twist that Robert Redgraves is the main villain. Oh, goodness sake! I said during the film I said Redgrave as well. Robert Redford is the main villain. No surprise, he is practically the highest billed actor in the cast. There was never going to be a situation where he wasn't the villain, considering. So that's not the surprise. The Hydra in S.H.I.E.L.D. surprise is something that was never done in the comics. It's something that changes our entire perception of S.H.I.E.L.D., changes the structure of the cinematic universe, because of course S.H.I.E.L.D. up to that point had been prominent throughout all of the films. And going forwards, it changes our attitude to the cinematic universe. This is around the time when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., of course, is starting to try and find out what its identity is, and this was dropped on them, and they had to completely restructure the show because the S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydras in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s twist, of course, completely changes what was supposed to be the first official MCU show. Right now, status of that is pending. It's not entirely clear if that's still officially part of the main MCU, but they still had to react and deal with that inside the show. And so that's the twist. That's the thing that, if someone had never seen this, I would absolutely not want them to know, because it really does change your perception of everything, the conspiracy thriller we've been watching up to this point, and our relationships with different characters. I think that's the thing that really that's the blow. It's the the White House is behind it level of conspiracy thriller type of storytelling. And of course being delivered by Zola, who of course gets his again glorified cameo as the Zola that is in the comics, where he's the computers and all of that. I do think it's a shame, looking ahead and knowing where it goes, that he's never brought back. The fact that they went to the effort of taking a character who was fairly prominent in the first Cap film, they of course, transition him to being the character from the comic books where he is like a computer, killing him, and then they never bring him back again. And I think that's a shame because, I don't know, it's such a weird and interesting... And maybe they were trying to steer away from that because it is very comic booky and it works for the small scene he's in. But I'd like to see it. And hey, we have the new Cat 4 coming. I'll come back to that in a second. Maybe he'll come back again as the villain, but I do think that was a bit of a shame. I suppose actually, yeah. So we are at of course this brings back Bucky, introduces Sam, and of course this they couldn't have known, but this paves the path of the MCU, of course, with Civil War, with everything for the Avengers off after that, into, of course, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and into Cat 4, which allows Sam to take up the mantle. He is now Captain America. And it's interesting watching the film now from the perspective of knowing, oh, this supporting character will be Captain America by the time, well, within a 7-year period, and we are going to get the Sam Wilson Captain America film. Anthony Mackie is a great actor, but there was no... again, this whole thing has been risks and chances of betting on actors, saying, well, Paul Bettany is a really good voice actor, but he luckily looked the part for when they transitioned him from Jarvis to Vision. And similarly, Anthony Mackie is a great Falcon, but they couldn't have known, oh, one day he will be Captain America and he will have to take the weight of being the lead of his own... of not only being his own cap and his own film that will be upcoming, but also, a legacy version of another character, which means he has to then also live up to the preset role by someone else. But again, he's such a great actor, and he will carry it. And Falcon and Winter Soldier has demonstrated that he is perfect for that transition. And of course, Sebastian Stan, who, looking back at First Avengers, similarly, there was no way they could have realised... I mean, they knew, of course, that they'd want to make the character Winter Soldier. But again, he is so prominent from this point on in the stories of Cap, the Avengers, the MCU, that the fact that they gambled on this actor who had a supporting role in one Captain America film that they didn't know what was going to happen afterwards, it really shows incredible faith in their cast, and incredible, great judgment. And, oh man, I wanted to talk about Chris Evans as well, because it's interesting. I did get another read on this film that I hadn't considered before. Because, I mean, the Man Out of Time storyline is the core of Captain America as a character. But what I realised they were doing across the 3 Captain America films, and really what distinguishes them from his role in the Avengers, is the fact that it's a man trying to find his place in the world. And in the first one, it's about someone who doesn't fit in with the army, but he knows he wants to do good, and bends over backwards and makes incredible risks and sacrifices to then become something. And even then, they turn him into a joke, and he has to earn his place. And he does. But just as he becomes the hero that he has always wanted to live up to, he then, of course, is taken out of time to a completely different setting where all of a sudden he has to start all over again. And between this and Civil War, what I realise is it continues the arc of him trying to find place. And of course, this film, I knew it was about him trying to fit into S.H.I.E.L.D., struggling, him going, well, am I a soldier anymore? Am I something else? Am I a spy? What am I? But what I realised is this and Avengers is him... It's distinctly about him going, okay, I will try and be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Oh no, I have the wrong characteristics, and the fact that I stood out the way I have has completely changed Shield, and that's the arc in that. So he goes, okay, fine, I will invest in being an Avenger, as we'll get to in Civil War. That doesn't work out for other reasons. And so across the films, I mean, the Avengers, obviously being ensemble, doesn't focus on this arc for him until we get to Endgame. But because it's his character in these films, he is the lead. It's the question becomes, what is the story for him? And it's a question of, do I have a place in the world at all? And frankly, if you just watch the three Cap films, you could make the argument that the answer is no, that he never finds his place. And of course, we then have to go into Infinity War and Endgame to then get the resolution to what he has to do to find that. And that doesn't mean, he doesn't fit in with the modern day, or he doesn't fit in. But what I mean is, he never. Every time he tries to go, this is what I am, the circumstances around the film essentially say, nope, you won't get to live up to whatever that is because of happenstance or conflicting ideologies. And I think it's interesting that's the Russos managed to weave that so well. I mean, mercifully, they were able to then pick it up into, having then led Infinity War and Endgame, whereas other directors might not have envisioned that's where the character would end up going. And again, the Russo brothers, I mean, these guys are just brilliant. I mean, across the plethora of MCU films that they've covered, have demonstrated their abilities time after time. And I am biased because, of course, they are part of the Community alumni, and I've loved Community for as long as I've loved MCU films. And any time that creators who were involved in that have been able to go on to something else, I've always championed their skills, because I think that was a breeding ground for great talent. But even so, the Russo brothers truly, as things were getting dicey, as I've mentioned with Iron Man 3 and the fact and Thor Dark World, that they were experimenting with different creatives, different styles to try and decide what the future of the MCU was. And of course, we'll get into further problems of stagnation with Joss Whedon and Age of Ultron. This was the point in which we started to get creatives who blended well, but also were able to interweave their creative visions. It didn't work with Shane Black because Shane Black has such a distinct style and voice that didn't quite mesh with the story he was telling. It didn't work with Thor: The Dark World, partly because it was supposed to be Patty Jenkins and it had to be changed, and it just didn't. Again, like I've mentioned, Thor: The Dark World is flat, but the Russos, and then of course we'll have James Gunn, and then to end Phase 2, it was intentioned to be Edgar Wright, and I'll talk about the Edgar Wright thing when we get to Ant-Man. But like I say, the Russos and James Gunn, well, frankly, the MCU wouldn't be what it is without those voices to keep it on the straight and narrow when other aspects of it started to come undone. And yeah, this is genuinely one of. I want to say it's the best Marvel film. I love Infinity War and Endgame. I love Black Panther, but this is just perfection. This really is just. I mean, it just does so much that's. I don't know. It's very pleasing, basically. And of course now, this will be, as I mentioned, with Falcon and Winter Soldier and Cap 4. This will be the point in which we see a non-Captain America film. Oh, sorry, a Captain America film helmed by not previous Captain America's directors, with the Russos having done Winter Soldier and will do Civil War. And it'll be interesting, of course, because we have the legacy Captain America with Sam Wilson. We have the director of Falcon and Winter Soldier coming on to do Cap 4, and there are issues with that. People have had issues with the Falcon and Winter Soldier as a series, but it is a series, and it was plagued by problems that were out of the control of the directors or the producers or anyone, including, of course, the pandemic and how that changed the film. But it'll be interesting to see a cat film and to see whether the director who goes on to take this on maintains the style of the Russo brothers, because there is that in The Falcon and Winter Soldier, or whether as you watch it you'll feel like you're watching a film with a very distinct identity to it, outside of the Russos, still within the MCU, still something that we've seen, and yet something that's new. And again, it'll be interesting, because that might be the new point in which the new direction goes for the cinematic universe. Who's to say in the current state of things what the future of the MCU will look like? You know, despite the fact that they've made all these announcements with the Captain Marvel sequel, The Marvels, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, the Black Panther sequel, and of course we've got Multiverse of Madness and Thor Love and Thunder and Ant-Man Quantumania and Spider-Man No Way Home, and all of these things to come. You know, we have probably a decade of films and TV projects all put forward, but that wouldn't be anything without what we had here. And it will be interesting to see whether we get that same sense of creative vision and voice, and how that reshapes the MCU in the way that this reshaped the MCU from Phase 2 onwards. Anyway, I loved it. It's great. Hail Hydra. Thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment below because it helps me with the algorithm, and hit that little bell to get notifications for when new videos go up. There are over 124 videos now, so please do check out the back catalogue of film reviews, and of course I have the Marvel Cinematic playlist of all the ones I've covered from Iron Man 1 all the way up to now, and of course that will continue. Follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I'm always tweeting movie and TV related content and news and videos, as well as the new uploads as they come up on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. Take care.